Giles Brown.
Let's talk.
Beautiful lives. How we got learning disabilities so wrong is being described as both heart-rending and gorgeous. It crosses the line many times, but ultimately it's about love. He teaches us humanity. A beautiful book, powerful, persuasive, illuminating, and moving. It is the story, which is a history of people with learning disabilities who've been regarded as unworthy of interest. It's written by Stephen Unwin. Delighted to say that Steve joins me live on the line now. Stephen, good morning to you, sir.
Morning. Lovely to be here.
Whereabouts do we find you on God's green earth this morning?
Well, I'm not in Marbella. I'm in sort of slightly rainy North London, and I wish I was with you.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot more fun.
So So what's the book Beautiful Lives, how we got learning disabilities so wrong? What was the spark behind this one? What made you want to write this particular look?
So I've got 3 kids, and my middle lad Joey has what we call learning disabilities. He has no speech. I mean, he's 28. He has no speech. He has epilepsy. He has a lot of challenges in getting through the day, is the honest truth. And he's also amazing. He's absolutely amazing. And I would say that, wouldn't I? But he is. Now, I was brought up, I'm an overeducated gobshite. And if I can use that language on you.
Well, you just have, so you might as well continue as you go on, Steve.
I come from a place where everybody speaks and can read and reads lots and talks a lot. And then I found myself as the dad of this extraordinary lad who is completely different. And it made me think about all sorts of things. And what I've done in this book, and I've written various other books, but what I've done in this book is it's rooted in the experience of my son, but it's really a history of the way that people, particularly actually clever people and people in power, have looked at people who've got some profound disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and frankly, how badly these people have been treated. And what I mean people with Down syndrome. I mean people with some autistic people, the autistic people who have bigger challenges. People with a whole range of different kinds of genetic syndromes. And they have been treated extraordinarily badly by the world over the last 2,000 years, particularly in Britain and America and Germany, but elsewhere too. And I just wanted to tell what is really a forgotten history of a forgotten minority. That was my drive. So that's what it's about.
I mean, people talk about sort of civil rights and Me Too movements and, Black Lives Matter, all that thing, all of which are worthy causes. But for people who have a special skill set, that is perhaps the last. Taboo's not the thing, but I have family who have learning difficulties. I have friends who have children who have it's a thing. And it used to be, our generation used to sort of the language is entirely different now. You said Down syndrome. Yeah. People would have said something beginning with M a while back.
Yeah.
And the way that we basically sort of hushed them. It wasn't talked about, was it? Apart from a Blue Peter special now and again.
I mean, I think they are the last forgotten minority. There have been so many movements which I applaud for women's rights, gay rights, all the rest of it, and ethnic diversity. These things are all incredibly important. But this group is the overlooked group. It's the forgotten group. And one of the things that's really striking is the way a lot of, quote unquote progressives, they find this group difficult. And particularly educated progressives who would champion the rights of black people, of women, of gay people, all of that, rightly, just think that this is just kind of beneath contempt. And I'm really tracking through, I suppose, what is a prejudice and a perpetual act of discrimination. The language, you're right, the language keeps changing. But when somebody says, oh, Donald Trump is a quote unquote, and I don't like the word, but I'll quote it, is a moron.
Yeah.
They're actually using language which is steeped in hatred. And what's more, I don't particularly like Donald Trump's politics, but it's not, they're not coming from him being not clever. They're coming from him being all sorts of other things.
Yes, I'm with you on that one.
All right, they're coming from being venal and cruel and all the rest of it, but not from being stupid.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we use this word, this discrimination, to attack people we don't like. But actually, in doing that, we're missing the point, and that the people who have problems tying up their own shoelaces, like my Joey, never hurt anybody. They're gorgeous. They're brilliant. They're lovely.
Here's the thing: we're not educated on how to approach people like this, and that can be a huge stumbling block. For
Absolutely.
If you meet somebody who's got serious cerebral palsy, it makes you. And I'm just talking off my own bat here, Steve. So shoot me down. Yeah. But people feel uncomfortable because they don't know that you. And we are taught, and from a Judeo-Christian whatever heritage, God made man in His image, and therefore, what is that in front of me, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, these are the last prejudices, and I understand what you're saying, but they are, with respect, they are prejudices. Let me tell you I'll tell you a little story. So I've got a daughter who's now 16, but when she was little, she had a friend round, and Joey was sort of being Joey. He was hanging out, but not speaking. And this friend came up went to B and said, "I'm scared of Joey." And B said, "You don't have to be scared of him. He's just got learning disabilities." And, I write that story in the book, and I say, out of the mouth of babes, actually. That's true. She was right. This was her aged 8. She saw it because she loves her brother she adores her brother. So now what I've written is I've written a book from, there are a load of footnotes and references. It's proper, I've done a lot of research in this. So, I'm not saying that the use of intelligence and of scholarship and of learning doesn't matter. It really matters. But people need to understand is that there are more important things like society, care of each other, all the things which are actually being threatened at the moment in this kind of fragmented world that we all live in. So we're in a world where the only thing that matters is being brainy. And I think that's a terrible mistake because people don't, lots and lots of people don't believe in God. They don't believe in society. They don't believe in family. They don't believe in, everything. The only thing they believe in is themselves and their brain. And that allows people like my lad to be actually exposed in a really in a way which is not great. Now there have been improvements in the way that people like my lad have lived and been treated, but we shouldn't be complacent. We shouldn't imagine that there aren't still issues of institutional abuse, random abuse, hatred, contempt. It goes on, and I hate it.
Yeah.
So that's why the subtitle of my book, Beautiful Lives, is How We Got Learning Disabilities So Wrong. And it is so wrong.
Because I suppose the thing is, it's the here comes, and here's your cliche for the day. If you judge intelligence about, how people can climb trees, then the fish are mocked because they can't get up the tree.
Exactly. Brilliant.
And so we don't look at, you can't do this, therefore you are valueless, which is the way, because we live with infrastructure, with structures and institutions that have compartments. And if you do not fit in, you know this better than anybody, there is no one standard for learning disability because, it's got this. There's no box you can tick.
I mean, look, mate, my extremely old dad, and you can see how old I am, my old dad who's 93, bless him, I love him to pieces, used to be a very, very able, clever man. Okay, he's now got profound Alzheimer's. He doesn't know what's going on at all. So, learning disabilities is universal. We're all capable of it. Even you, I know you're just a young man, but you got to watch out for it, mate. It's universal stuff. We're all fragile, and that's really got to be understood. And so it's both a history, but it's also a plea for thinking again about what our hierarchies are. I mean, here's the thing, Joe. I come from a very big family, a lot of interesting, lively people. Joey's the happiest of all of us. He's the guy who knows how to be happy. He's the guy who knows how to have a laugh. Yeah, when we're all sitting around moaning and groaning. He's the guy who actually shows the way. And that's important, I think.
But also it's important to also not just characterize as two-dimensional characters. Hollywood does a great job of this. It gets it completely wrong on many counts. But you have to realize that this is not this is not he has this special skill set and he's always happy. It's not that at all.
No, I really don't like that. I don't like that thing about what they call disability inspiration porn. I think one's got to be careful about that, because Joey, who has a great talent for happiness, needs care. He needs to be looked after, and we all, society has responsibility to other people, in my humble opinion. And Joey does need help. He certainly needs help. He can't cook his own dinner. He can't, there are all sorts of stuff he can't begin to do. So it's not like, everything's fine. It's let us see what there is and let us help people by what they need. So in a way, it's a philosophical book, but it's also a history, but it's also about culture, it's about language, about the way that this group has been represented in art, in drama, in television and film, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what it is.
Yeah, so not much to get stuck into then, Steve. Really, I mean, just and that's why it's a 15 page. No, but I mean, history. I mean, let's get the biggie out of the way first, because of eugenics. I mean, this was the whole thing. Yeah. We know that people are thundering around. As the Third Reich collapses, there are still some. I watch my language here. Who are carrying out, basically euthanasia, but murder of people who don't fit into the eugenic. I mean,
disabled people were the first people to be murdered by the Nazis.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a fact. They were the first because they were regarded. There was this Nazi phrase: people were living lives unworthy of love. I mean, it's as monstrous as it gets. However, eugenics wasn't just. I mean, eugenics was invented in Britain. It was invented in London. All right,
it's Brave New World, isn't it? The whole Huxley Brave Superman and Superwomen will be created.
Yeah, all this kind of bullshit, and it says that there is good genes and bad genes. One of the things I like doing is I like saying, I went to a fantastic university. I've written 12 books. People say, "Oh, you're very clever." I like raising the flag and saying, and I'm the dad of a lad who can't speak, which just shows that the eugenics thinking is bullshit. There isn't. Sorry, I'm using rather.
It's fine. Listen, I mean, we're in Spain. People are on their third coffee, for goodness sake. If not a coffee and a brandy.
God, I'm so jealous of you there. So eugenics was really dreadful, and Britain luckily only avoided sterilising people by the narrowest of margins in Parliament. But so what happened after
that's the bill for Parliament, not sterilising people actually in Parliament, which might be perhaps a better idea, some would argue.
Well, and that nearly happened because they thought that people with learning disabilities, if they had children, would then carry it on, and this would be this terrible, dreadful menace to the race, as they called it. But some people still believe in eugenics. There still is this notion that there are good humans, they're the right kind of humans and the wrong kind of humans.
Yes.
And that may not cause concentration camps, but it does cause division in society. It's division and contempt for people who are regarded as not as valuable as other people. So this stuff is serious. It's really serious, but the book is also powered by love and affection, and I think, telling a story. Eugenics is the worst bit, but there are other problems too.
I mean, we have the house that we had. We have those great, the Victorians, who aren't my favourite period of history, but they, it's that philanthropy, and we'll put them away in institutions so that they can be, to say they can be better treated, but basically it's get them out of sight. I mean, that's
what those were. They were these places called colonies, which were set up in the 1910s, they should be self-sufficient, as far away from the cities as possible, pushed out of sight and out of mind. And what's really weird, is that there was this notion, there were these people called the feeble-minded. Now, that was people like Joey, who you could say is feeble-minded, but it was also women who got pregnant who weren't married. Alcoholics, schizophrenics were all regarded as feeble-minded. So the very definition of what somebody who's got learning disabilities keeps changing. And that's been one of the complicated things I've had to chart through the book. And the problem is once you start calling people names, once you start calling them categories, you start othering them, and then you start sending them away and packing them away and not treating them like human beings.
How far back have you gone then with this? Because I mean, I'm just thinking. I mean, are we top of my cranium once again? But are we seeing even documentation about learning, people with learning disabilities in, for example, the Middle Ages, in the Restoration? Do we go back to ancient civilizations? I mean, how do you? Yeah.
It's always difficult to really, because who are you pointing at? So somebody would say, in Greek or Roman culture, somebody was was weak-minded.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean they had learning disabilities, or does that mean that they just like to drink? It's a complicated problem catching this, but the more you look, the more you can see certain attitudes. There's an interesting thing is, so long as people are not defined as having learning disabilities, they tend to have they have a better life than they do when they start being a category, and you then say, we're going to put all of them in that place. So it's sort of thought more and more that probably people in medieval England with learning disabilities probably had a better life than they did in the 19th century, right? They were accepted as they were just accepted as people who did a bit of work, I mean, Dewey's really good at emptying the dishwasher, all right?
Fine. So go back sort of 500, 6 years ago. He's there with a plough, and he's doing the straightest lines.
He's there with the plough, all right? So it's only by creating it as a problem, oh my God, this is such a problem, that it becomes a problem, if you see what I mean. And that's it. In answer to your question, how far, I go right back to the Greeks and the Bible and Judaism and Islam. I go right back to the kind of, 2,000 years. And I track through pretty quickly to the 20th century, because that's obviously where it's most important for us today. The 20th century, and then I suppose the second half of the book is what's the situation like today. In Britain, there are about 1.5 million people who they say have got learning disabilities. That's quite a population. I was really struck. There's a brilliant book by David Olusoga called Black British, which is the history of black people in Britain, about which I knew very little, and shamefully little. And he just tells the story. And he calls it a forgotten history. And in a way, Beautiful Lies is also a forgotten history of actually a smaller group, but a group which was subject to parallel kind of discrimination and contempt. So that's how I like to think, and that's how I like to think about it. But people who like it have just said that it's vivid, it's clear, it's readable, and that it's got a kind of an emotional centre. And I think it does because of my lad. It starts with what I call a letter to Joey. And I'll just read you the last I'm just going to read the last two paragraphs,
Please
if you don't
do.
mind. Would you like that?
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you, Steve.
I refer to you in the book from time to time, imagining you in the places and situations that I describe, and sometimes share what it feels like to be your dad. But my real subject is bigger than you, bigger than both of us. It's where the people with learning disabilities, some of whom are a bit like you, some of whom really aren't, have been understood and misunderstood, revered and despised throughout history. My book, your book, is about the complicated relationship between culture and society, ideas and practice, thinking and doing. Some of what follows is tough. Some of it is really tough. But I hope that writing it down will help the reader understand why people like you are so valuable, not just to me, but to all of us. For the truth is, my darling Joey, even if you're not the subject of this book, and even if most of what follows is about things that thankfully you will never experience, it's a love letter to you and your amazing golden smile. Like all the best love letters, it's not written in expectation of an answer, but it's true all the same. I just hope it makes a difference, Dad. So that's the end of the kind of introduction, which is I call a letter to Joey, a letter which he'll never read.
Oh, blimey. That's an emotional Monday for you then. That's absolutely...
There you go.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah. If people are... Because I'm not going to say what you hope the people take from that, because that's just a bog standard thing that people say, but they're going to be people who hopefully look at people like Joey, hopefully in a different way, and can approach them and not be like the 8-year-old was, scared, those years ago.
Look, people with learning disabilities don't hurt people. Look, they're not. You don't have to worry about them. You don't have to be frightened of them. They're fun. Enjoy them. Give them a hug. Be with them. Treat them as fellow human beings. This is not a threat. There are threats in the world, but a person with Down syndrome is not a threat. And that's what we've got to get over. We've got this inherited fear of, somebody who doesn't speak or somebody who's got a slightly different way of being. They're not a danger. They're not a menace. They're not, So we've got to get past it. We've got to check our language. We've got to check our attitudes. We've got to think more clearly about being human. So that's a big, big thing. And the book just tries to tell, it's full of information, it's full of detail, but it's framed by that bigger appeal, that bigger wish.
The book is called Beautiful Lives, How We Got Learning Disabilities So Wrong. It's by Stephen Unwin, who is speaking today. Listeners, you can go to the TRE virtual bookstore. You will find it there. Just click on the front cover and it will be winging its way to you by some distributor or other. Steve, if people want to follow you online and say nice things, are you a social media guru? Can they find you online?
I'm an absolute social media tart. I'm all over the place. I'm still on Twitter. I'm still on Twitter, man. Right, on X, as it's meant to be called. Indeed. I'm on Facebook. I'm on what's it called, Blue Sky. Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm all over the place.
Well, listen, it's been wonderful having you all over the place. Next time we'll get you down to Marbella so you can do your
please.
You can do your. We can have that. You can have that Cata Helio and drop that language on a Monday morning. Listen, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you this morning.
And you, bless you. Thanks all. All bye. Bye.